your story is real. Your journey is real. The things you've been through that have shaped you, informed you,
Yep.
and caused you to do certain things and be that person you are today. It's real. And sometimes we want to pretend it didn't exist or that didn't happen or somehow, but the reality is it's all a part of our makeup of who we are today.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Rick Torrison. Rick is the founder of Right Now Leadership and Revival Rivers, which is a nonprofit. He's an international speaker, a certified Success and John C Maxwell coach. He helps passionate and growth-minded leaders walk in the power of their identity. Rick, I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for being here today, taking the time out. I really appreciate it. I know your time is valuable. So thank you for coming to share some with us.
Yeah, well, it's my honor. I'm excited to be here. I have listened to some of your podcasts. I've been kind of researching a little bit about who you are and what you do, and I am fascinated and actually ready to learn a little bit as well. So I'm really looking forward to being with you. So thanks for the opportunity to be a part of your podcast, and I hope that we can add some value to the listeners today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we will.
Yeah.
Let's start by telling them your story. Tell us your background,
Okay.
kind of what brings you to where you are today, and just let people know kind of the story behind yourself.
Well, I'd love to do that. So can I ask you one question first? Is that okay? And then we jump into that before we get into that whole conversation. So I'm going to tell you my story, and it's really about my journey of realizing I had some limiting beliefs in my life that were acting as ceilings over my life and keeping me from what I was fully believed that I was created and destined and purposed to be a part of. And I didn't realize I had those limiting beliefs. And so everything I do, the book I've written, the stuff I do is really about how do I identify and crush limiting beliefs and then build a roadmap to our success. And so I like to ask my podcast that I'm on, so you've done some amazing stuff. I mean, you've had to take some risk to do from veterinary and a surgeon there and then real estate and things you're doing. I would love to just ask you a quick question before we jump into me is, was there a limiting belief? We all have them, right? We don't even know we do sometimes in areas of our lives. Was there a limiting belief or a thing that you had to kind of mindset that you had to kind of shift or overcome, especially when you took that leap to go into another area, you know, in the practice and all that? I'm just curious, what was your experience with limiting beliefs been that you've overcome, or maybe that you've kind of gone, yeah, I've had to deal with this lie that I've believed. I'm just curious. It helps me in my process. So
every day,
right?
limiting beliefs. I mean, I think that they're hugely important to success and also like not pursuing success. So I think that for me personally, one of the biggest, I guess I would say, like in direct relation to, you know, kind of a career shift, if you will, one of the biggest limiting beliefs was like, you can't do that. You can't be good at something else, right? Like you only get to be successful in one thing. And I think that's been something that it was hard to like still I mean, people see me as a veterinary surgeon. Like most of the people I know, that's what they think of me as. And then when I talk to them about real estate investing, I think there's limiting beliefs behind being something else that is, you know, I guess of interest or that can help them. And so that's probably one of the biggest ones that I continue to still face, you know, sort of on a daily basis.
And that's actually really, really good, because it reminded me of kind of my same story. I mean, that limiting belief is part of, at least for me. So I chased a girl. I'm going to tell you my story, and but I want to address what you just said as well. So I chased a girl to Texas. I'm from the Midwest originally, although I was born in California, not too far from where you're at, a lot in Torrance, but single mom. She was with a guy in California. I was actually the fourth child. There was three before me. I'm 59, so on the verge of 60. So this was in the 60s. She had three kids before me. Two she aborted, and one she gave up for adoption, and then she chose to keep me. I share that because these are things that happen in your life, right? That you don't have any control over, but they begin to play out in your world. And then you begin to interpret those experiences, that environment in a certain way that create a belief system that you begin to have. Even when you're a small child and you start growing, you're interpreting your life's experiences and stuff and creating beliefs that drive our behaviors and our actions that result in outcomes. And I'll talk about this some as we go through this. But so I started there, but I want to hit what you said because it's like, wow, I had a little epiphany moment with what you said about my own journey. So I came down, chased a girl to Texas, was an educator and a teacher and a coach. And then I went into full-time ministry. Crazy story. I didn't grow up in the church, but I ended up going into full-time ministry, church planting and doing church stuff. But then I left that because I was never really a pastor. And I went into the professional world, into leadership development and growth and coaching, what I'm doing now. But when I made that shift, no one could see me as anything other than a pastor. And so no matter where I was in my community and everything I did, and then my mind said, well, can I really be anything else? And do I have the right to say I can teach or coach on leadership, or I can, do these things? And so my mind started cycling through this. Well, maybe I've made a mistake. Maybe I'm not really good at this. Maybe I can't be a professional. Maybe, all those things that go through our heads that I can't. Everything you just said, that's exactly where I was when I made the shift. This was over 25 years ago. But when I made that shift, and it took a long time for me to own this other place that I was standing in. I actually I moved. I didn't do it because I moved to another town, and they didn't know me as pastor in that town. And that was where the stark difference was. Like, is when I started working and doing stuff there professionally in this leadership world, they received me and it was amazing. And I thought, wow, I just noticed that limiting belief I had and the way I set myself up to not be successful because I couldn't see myself as something else. I mean, I was doing it, I was living it, but the reality was So anyways, I just share that because when you said that, I was like, oh, there's a memory for me in my own journey. So, But yeah, so my story is I chased a girl to Texas, caught her. We've been married 33 years. I've got 2 kids, a 29-year-old and a 25-year-old. Both are adopted. They were adopted from birth. So I was there in the hospital when they were born, and amazing kids, amazing stories. That's all part of the journey. But I guess what got me to where I'm at today and what I'm doing, what my passion really is the realization that I'd created constructs in my world about my abilities, my confidence, my identity, my worth, my values based on how I interpreted experiences in my life. So like I said, I was, back in those days, you don't have an abortion, you don't give a child up for adoption, you're not married and have kids. So my mom was already living in a world that said, this is not okay. Right. And so I couldn't go home. She couldn't take me home. But when she said she wanted to keep me, the guy she was with left, said, I'm done. So I don't know him. I was raised by my mom and my gram, and so I didn't realize it back then. But as I was growing, realizing I'm growing in the 60s without a dad, I started to make stories up about why I didn't have a dad. He was in the war and got killed, all those things, because I had to somehow figure out who I was, how I belonged, how I fit. And then being a latchkey kid, I tell people before there were latchkeys, right? And so my mom was gone a lot, and so I had babysitters. The other thing that marked me, and I'll share why I share this, because it's where those beliefs come from, where this stuff comes from that caused me to be on the journey I'm on, is I was abused by a babysitter. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. And, no one knew. It never came out. It was, it was one of those things that happened. But what I realized is I look back as perspective, right? We look back over our lives and realize these things in our lives, these markers in our lives. I realized that from that experience and other experiences, I interpreted them as I must be a problem. I'm wrong. It was my fault. I'm not worthy. And I started to look at females, not my mom and my gram so much, because they were amazing, great love, but they were working. It was a hard time. But I started looking at women a certain way, girls a certain way. And so I started treating them a certain way. And that started playing out as I was getting to be a teenager and a young adult, and then into my 20s and in college. And I had a lot of broken relationships, a lot of stuff. And I'd put on this front that said, I'm okay, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I can do anything I put my mind to. And I would let everyone know I'm great. While inside, I was miserable. And every time I'd have to show up, I would end up figuring out a way to quit, leave, or move on to the next thing. Careers, jobs, relationships didn't matter. So I share all that because when I met my wife, everything started to change. And I realized I wanted to spend my life with her. And as we were getting closer and moving towards that direction, and I come down to Texas from Illinois, from the Chicago area, I started seeing a lot of problems. We started really butting heads. There was a lot of issues. And I thought, man, this is not good. I don't know why this is showing up. I found the person I want to be with, yet I couldn't be with her. And so that was a really change for me, caused me to really go, what do I do? What's wrong? Where is this coming from? And then I had another marking point that started to shift my mindset. And that was her dad came to me 6 months into living in Texas. And he gets in my space, right? You've ever had somebody kind of walk into your space and like they're in your space? He was an amazing guy. He still is. Smart, just really good man. Business owner, entrepreneur, very successful. And he was a Christian faith guy, right? Really had a strong faith. That was not in my world. I'd never thought about it. Didn't care about it. It wasn't part of my deal. Well, he gets in my face and he says, hey, I think you're a really neat guy. I really like you. And I'm glad you're dating my daughter. I said, okay. He said, but if you want to have a relationship with my daughter, you need to get a relationship with the Lord. I was like, okay. And honest to God, it was like, well, I thought I was the Lord. And so therefore it's all cool. And I got this figured out. I laugh about it. And it's not about faith per se, but it was that place where I was confronted with this identity thing, this, what do I believe? Who are you? What's important to you? And so I went on a journey of discovery, right? Because I was provoked to say, is this life you're living, this thing, your persona you're putting out there, is that as good as it gets? Is that it? Is that what you're going to be? Is that what you're going to do? Is that how you're going to show up? And something inside of me said, I don't think so, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to do. So that, and there's so many other stories, but that was really the catalytic place that took me on a journey of understanding that the outcomes that we get in our lives, and I know this is a lot, I'll wrap this up here in just a second, Jason, but the outcomes that we get in our lives, the fruit of our life, we all have them. There's things good and bad. It is what it is. Yep. They are all a result of behavior or actions that we take. Behaviors, things that we do produce an outcome. I mean, it's just natural. Every action, every behavior has some kind of result tied to it. Big, small, known, unknown, but they do. All of our behaviors, our actions, they come from a belief. Every one of our beliefs that we have, whatever we believe, even if we don't recognize it anymore because we've held it so long, demand an action, a behavior. That behavior gets an outcome, right? All of our beliefs come from how we interpret life that happens to us throughout time, right? Something happens, it may not be good or bad, but we interpret it. My abuse, my, being a single mom, I interpreted those things without help. And so I had certain definitions and interpretations of those that began to shape how I believed, that played out in how I lived, that bore certain fruit. And that was the story I went on, and I got to my wife, this girl, and I thought, man, I love her. I really want to be with her, but man, these behaviors, these outcomes are terrible. This is not going to work. So what do we typically do? We typically seek to change our behaviors, work harder, study more, get up earlier, get a new system, get a new process, do something different if you don't like the outcomes you're getting. And that's true. But the problem is we typically end up right back where we were, because we never really dealt with the source, which is the belief that drives the behavior. If we want a sustainable change in our life, no matter what it is, personal, professional, doesn't matter. We don't like an outcome. We have to change the behaviors. That's true. But sustained transformation, change comes when we identify the belief that drives the behavior. So I share all that to say that is the framework. That's the heart of who I am and what I do in my personal coaching, my group coaching, the leadership development, personal and professional stuff that I do. The book that I've got coming out is all about understanding this framework and then how to help people identify and crush the limiting beliefs and then build an actual roadmap to get you from where you are to get new outcomes to where you want to be and to really believe that you can do that. So I'll stop. That's a lot of words for a podcast of me just talking, but that's my journey, and that's how I got here, and that's what I've chosen to give my life to, is helping people get from where they are to where they want to be by identifying, crushing, and replacing limiting beliefs. So There you go. No, I hope that's what you were looking for. So.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. But by the way, there are no wrong answers to any of these questions.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Truly, your story, and I love what you said, and it does. A lot of those beliefs come from our past experiences, and I think in a lot of instances, we might change, like you said, like you change your behaviors, but sometimes you change your behaviors, but you're just changing them and in a way that supports that belief that you already have.
Right.
And so instead of kind of, you just have to work at both angles. Like you have to become almost like a different person within your belief system and stop telling those stories and all of that. But it's not easy to do.
Right.
How would you tell someone, or what would you tell someone in getting started towards making those changes? Right. They hear you talking and they're like, hey, I really resonate. I understand what he's saying, but also I've been trying all the get up earlier, change, work out more, all of those things. And it's still getting the beliefs out. Like, how do you tell people they should approach that?
It's a great question. I think the principles I'll share with you are true universally. I think there's certain truths that are true no matter what, but how they play out or manifest in someone's world or life, how they engage those are very unique to each of us because our stories, like I would tell your listeners, everybody, I mean, your story is real. Your journey is real. The things you've been through that have shaped you and formed you and caused you to do certain things and be that person you are today. It's real. And sometimes we want to pretend it didn't exist or that didn't happen or somehow, but the reality is it's all a part of our makeup of who we are today. But here's what I know. Our past, no matter how good or negative it might have been, was never designed or meant to define our future. Right. And so I'm going to get to your question. So if that's true, right, I think our past is meant to inform us and refine us and to influence what we're doing and what we're becoming. But a lot of times we wear our past like this lens by which we view our future. So it's marked by all of these things in our life. And when you do that, like I've got my hands here, if these are my lenses, I can see you, I can make stuff out, but it's not very clear and it's blurry and it's limited. But if I can clean my glasses, clean my perspective, understand my past wasn't meant to define me, all of a sudden I have a clear picture of what's in front of me. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to get there. It doesn't mean anything's going to change, but now I can see something differently. So what I tell people, where we start in this whole process is really, it's willing to ask yourself some hard questions. In other words, here's what I've found, Jason, is that we live our lives in such a manner, these behaviors for so long that are producing something less than. It doesn't have to be terrible. It doesn't have to be a miserable life. It's just something less than, and something inside of us says, I think there's more, but I just can't seem to break through. And we just say, well, this is normal. This is how my life is. This is how it's always been. It's how it's always going to be. I've tried all this before. All those things we do. And we basically get to this place that say the life that we're living today, this is normal. This is my life. Yes. But the question I start with is I ask someone, what if the normal that you're living in, not judging it as good or bad, but what if the normal that you call normal that you're living in, what if it's not normal? What if there's something more? I don't mean money and stuff. What if there's something greater? What if there's more that you are meant or can or will or do or influence or impact? What if that were true? That question alone, if I can get someone to go, well, that's a very interesting question. Hadn't ever really thought about it. And I go, but would you consider that maybe the normal, the life that you're calling normal isn't normal. Maybe there's another normal for you. Would you be willing to explore that? That's the first thing. Because if they say yes, that's a game changer. The door then opens to explore why we are where we are. What has caused us to get here? Why is this cycle keep happening? It doesn't have to be bad, but it's just we're stuck here, right? Yeah. And when we can do that, we can then define, is that behavior, the belief that's driving it, based on a truth or a lie? If I go back to the story I started with, I was abused. From that abuse, I began to see women and girls in relationships a certain way. which caused me to act a certain way. So when I got older and I start looking back over my life and go, man, why do I keep doing this, right? Why is this the cycle in my life? And I'm not talking about big get on the couch and counseling and psycho and all that kind of. I'm just talking about exploring how I got here, what it looks like.
Yeah.
So when I got there and I go, okay, the source is true. I was abused. It wasn't good. It was unhealthy. There was nothing good about that. The problem was how I interpreted it. That was a lie. I interpreted it as if somehow I deserved it. I earned it. I did it. It had to be hidden. And now all girls and all women were going to be like this. And so I'm going to build a wall. The story, the incident, the trauma, the moment was true. My interpretation was wrong. It was a lie. That lie that I chose to believe drove me down a road that left a wake of broken relationships and broken hearts in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
When I could go back to that point and say, no, the experience was true, not okay. Everything about it was wrong, but it didn't have to define me as being bad, wrong, or all women as X. Okay, now I can replace that lie with a truth. Now I start working it out again. Everything changes. So I have a new belief about me that can drive new behaviors that are sustainable to produce greater outcomes. And I've seen it thousands and thousands of times to help people walk through that. Again, a lot of words. I hope that's helpful. If that's the journey. But it starts with that question: what if your normal isn't normal? Are you willing to explore that?
I love that. It's interesting. I think most of the time, what ifs, the question of what if, is always in reference to a negative, right? Like people think of, well, what if this goes wrong? And that's what gets assigned to a what if, right? What if this investment goes poorly? What if this, relationship doesn't work out? But I always, and in your example is another kind of spin on this, but I just love the idea of, what if it goes well? What if it goes better than you think going to? What if like all of this stuff? And like you said, what if what you think is normal is not normal? Well, okay, let's just think about what are those possibilities if you allow yourself to look in that direction rather than just kind of always towards the negative of a what if. And I think it's just so powerful. Just it's almost just like turning what if up on its upside down on its head and kind of looking at it from a totally different angle.
That's so good, Jason. You're 100% on. Our minds, we're created for fight or flight. We're created to protect ourselves. Just our natural creators. That's how we're wired. Protect. Yeah. That means typically our minds chase negative outcomes. How many people? I don't know anyone who, if I'd say, hey, when your mind races about something that's in front of you that is happening, do you race to a positive? This is going to be amazing, or does it go to the negative? This is going to be, oh my gosh, what if? And it's going to end up, and all of a sudden we're in a pit. We're in anxiety, we're in overwhelm, we're frustrated, and we won't go any farther because we've played out a scenario in our head. And our head never chases this amazing possibility for the most part, unless we condition it. We chase the negative.
Yeah.
And now we're in this pit and we won't even step. We won't dare, we won't risk, we won't get out of our comfort zone because I've played out 28 scenarios of how they could cause harm or damage to my life or my relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And we're wired that way. So there's a freedom there. I think when people understand, listen, you're chasing that's not wrong. It's not uncommon. It's not normal.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be the only avenue. And if you can stop it soon enough and ask a different question, now there's hope and courage. You can paint a different destination, right? I mean, think about it. If I've got two destinations in front of me and one is a pit or a dark cave with something that's growling in there, and another one, I love Mexican food. Another one is a Mexican restaurant with my favorite, nachos and salsa sitting there, right? And I start playing out, I've got to make a choice. Which one excites me? If I start thinking about the Mexican food and the food, I start going, oh, there's an objective out there. That excites me. I'm ready. Let's go get it. But if I go, there's that, but I'm so worried about this cave over here and what's in there, and now I'm lost, and now I feel heavy and afraid and worried, and anxiety starts to fill. The more we can paint a picture of a future, whether we're there or not, that's real and tangible, we can taste it and feel it, the greater opportunity we have to grow, get out of where we are, and actually take a risk or pursue something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the point is not to say that you should just live your life taking all risks and not, not calculate. But I think, big achievements, great achievements come with some level of risk. But honestly, like doing nothing, being sort of mired in unhappiness is probably a bigger risk. Like health-wise, both mental and physical. I mean, people don't look at those things as risks, but like it's every much of a risk as shooting for the big thing and falling a little bit short. Like it's okay to not.
Yeah.
Like if you what's the saying? Like shoot for the moon and land on the stars. You're still pretty good place. Right. Like whatever it is, I don't know. But
yeah. That's right. Something like that. Yep.
Something like you don't have to. It's just looking at it from a different angle, and I like the way that you're describing that. It just makes a whole lot of sense.
And Jason, it's about celebrating little steps. We think that if this is where we are and this is where we want to be, we think we've got to leap this cavern and take a big risk and a big step. And I tell most people, listen, the way you get across this cavern is a little step at a time. The key is just take a step.
Yeah.
It does do something that's simple. You go, well, why would I celebrate that? Why would I do that? Because it's a movement in a direction you haven't moved before. Celebrate it. And I tell people, celebrate doing something different. Don't discredit yourself because you didn't do something different that wasn't big enough. Who tells you it's not big enough, right? But we play in this world out here, and we don't listen to the world that's in here. And the world in here will take care of us. It will move us. It will allow us to, if we just trust the world that's in here, to say, I'm just going to take this step. I'm going to think about this. I'm going to propose this thought. That's a win. You're able to think about it. Celebrate it. Yeah. Because the next thing you'll do is you'll take a step towards it and celebrate it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to take those little steps. I mean, the greatest successful people, you know this because, listen, talk about risk. I'm sure you've taken a lot of it. You've had to put yourself in a lot of interesting places. But you didn't just show up there. You had to take that first step. I'm going to move in this direction. And then you realize, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to move there a little bit more. Or you surround yourself with good people like your team that goes with you that's building the real estate side. You get, okay, I'm not alone. There's some people I can lock arms with and we'll walk together because alone it's scarier. But I've got a few people around me who are like-minded, supportive. They want to step. So we'll step together. I mean, there's so many ways to step out of the mediocrity that we find ourselves in. But the reality is too, and I tell people this, if you want to stay there, you can. You have every right to stay in your comfort zone. No one has a right to tell you shouldn't be there or somehow you're less than because you're in this place and you're comfortable. It's okay.
Yeah.
You have a choice to be there and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. But if you feel something greater, if you have a desire, if you think, man, could I? Then don't stop yourself from pursuing that thought.
Right. Yeah.
But we condemn people because they do or they don't do something, or you're just always in your comfort zone. You live such afraid. And I'm like, listen, Lee, it's okay.
Yeah.
Recognize where you are, own it, be okay with it. And if you want to do something about it, okay.
Yeah. And I think your point there about, sort of the team and getting like-minded individuals around you, certainly that helps that process. It helps you move in that direction of big and looking at people who have done what you're thinking about doing, right? Looking at the people that have had success in the same direction that you have and being like, okay, it's possible. Clearly someone did it. And okay, now why can't I? And just being, that's so the good. Idea is just, realizing that, look, maybe saying anything is possible is not like I'm not going to be able to play in the NFL at this point. Like that's not happening. But the reality of like things, you can still look at big things and work towards them without, and remove some of the shackles of those limiting beliefs. I think it's just
so good.
I think it's just I don't know, a more encouraging way to live through life, I think.
I think we need to give each other some grace. And I think we need to, for me, what drives me, Jason, is at my very core, because of my own journey of what I thought about myself, and then my self-discovery of my identity and my createdness and what I believe, what has been poured into me relationally, was like, wait a minute, there's an identity in here. There's a value and a worth here that I never really believed was there. And someone spoke into it. They began to say, I think there's more inside of you than than you're allowing yourself to. And giving grace to say everyone's there in some manner. I mean, I may be great over here, work world. I may be amazing in the business or professional world, and I've been through 6 marriages. Right. And so we just say, let's focus on this and we'll pretend this doesn't exist or whatever. I'm like, no, we're holistic people. We can compartmentalize, but we're not made to. Right. And so what is this going on in this world? And do we want to do something about that? Or are we just saying, well, that's normal. That's just how I am because I'm not good with relationships. Well, you haven't been, but I would say, I love the word yet. I tell people, well, I've never been good at this, or I can't do this. I say, well, just put another word on the end for me. If we're going to have this conversation, just put yet. Just put the word yet. Because what you're telling your subconscious and your psyche, you're telling your energy, there may be a possibility. Maybe I could be. And that's all it needs is a different shift enough to create a possibility. Doesn't mean we'll get there. There's no guarantee, but it does open the door that says, maybe I can do something else.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is I can't play in the NFL yet is what the way I should reframe that for myself.
So here's the thing. So here's what I tell you. You yes and no, right? So realistically and funny, right? The chance of you playing in the NFL, probably 0, but I wouldn't say. I said, listen, if you're dreaming, Pat, you want to play in the NFL, and I can't play in the NFL yet, so here's what I would say. Then go after it with everything you have.
Yeah.
Do what you're created to do. Go be that. Don't settle for something less. If you make it, hallelujah. If you don't, you don't. But don't let the belief stop you from pursuing the dream because someone else said a 5 whatever, they look at these, well, this guy this way could never do that. There's people doing it. So I'm not saying you can. I'm saying don't stop yourself from believing in the possibility to pursue. So here's the thing. Most of us I want to be in the NFL. I don't want the work.
Right.
I want to be the business owner and I want to be the entrepreneur that has the boat and the yacht and the homes, but I don't want to do the work. So I'm like, okay, dream. I don't have the home on the beach yet. Great. Here's where my current reality is. Are you ready to do the hard work to get the home on the beach?
Yeah.
Because you don't just go from I don't have it yet and go, I got it tomorrow. Sacrifice and cost and challenge and failures and getting up and stumbling. That's all in between this. But I'm not going to tell someone, don't dream about the beach, the house on the beach. Yeah. But if you want to, then let's really talk about what will it take for you to get there? And then you go, I don't want to pay that price. Okay. Right. You don't have, that's fine. It's okay. Yeah. There's no judgment there. But you've reasoned it. You've thought about it. You've looked at it. You've dug into it and said, nope, not something that I'm willing to do. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Now you're the owner. You become the master of your world, not subject to the mindset of your world, right? That is going to be limiting unless you give intention to it. I don't know if that makes sense. If
No, it does. And I say the NFL thing, obviously jokingly, but
I know
the reality is like, if you're exactly right? Like if I definitely won't be in the NFL if I don't train to be in the NFL and try to learn what I need to get there. And if I did all of that, if I put in all of the work and didn't make it on a team, well, I'm going to be super fit. And like there's a whole lot of good.
The blessing of the human that you have become.
Yeah. It's like, there's a whole lot of good, like there's plenty of people that were, played at a high level in college and didn't get into the NFL. Like that's okay. Like the point being just what you said. And I'm so glad that you answered that sort of the way that you did, in the sense that it's about, okay, I want this thing. I'm not gonna forego it because my mind tells me I shouldn't do that. And the limiting belief, it's like, if I don't want to do it because of the work it's going to take me to get there, okay, that's one thing. But like, if you want to just go for it and pursue it, then do that. Like there's no, and if you fall a little short, you're probably a whole lot better off than when you were when you started that process.
100%. And I think that's the thing for me. That's what I do, right? That's the limiting belief thing. Is if someone wants to say that, then I'm saying, okay, what's keeping you? Like you're going, oh, I'll never be in the NFL or whatever. I'll never be a business owner. Mm-hmm. I'll never be a manager. I'll never be in this position. I'll never do that. I'm going, okay, maybe. As long as that's what you're saying, that's truth. It will manifest because that's what you believe. But why don't you believe you can be? So I start with the why. Because they got to bring it back. Why is a backward looking question, but it brings them to why do you not think you can be there? Well, I've tried and I've failed. I've taken okay, and why do you think that is? And we go back until we get to the nugget of truth in the whys. Yep. And then I grab that place wherever that last why is, and I put on top. I said, now let's take that and build that as a foundation. What if this was different and you were there? What would that feel like? What would that look like? What would that? And all of a sudden now you can shift the backward thinking to why I couldn't be to, well, because I believe that, I mean, think about the sports. You gave a great analogy about sports. I know I played basketball in college, a little bit after college, a long time ago. I love it. I mean, it was just my outlet. I love playing. I knew I'd never be any more than that, but I know guys and I've had friends who were smaller, not as strong as when they were young, and they were told you'll never, and they played college and NBA. Why? Because somewhere in their head, they said, no, I will. They didn't take that and take that label and own it because of their size, the things they were lacking. They looked at what they did have and they pursued that, and they were able to, not everybody makes it, but they were able to make it. But they never would have tried if something inside of them wouldn't have said, no, I'm not going to buy that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point of life is not whether I make the end result. It's that I'm willing to try to pursue that end result and give it the best shot that I can and remove any obstacles that don't have to be there. Mm-hmm. Like physical obstacles. I'm one-handed or whatever. Those are real things that I got to deal with. But mental things, they can be changed and shifted. You don't have to own those and wear those like a body part.
Yeah.
But we do. We do. We wear them like they are something that are, because we call it normal, remember? And that it's normal. This is how I've always been. Okay. And what if it wasn't? But it is. I know. And if they can't answer that question, here's the thing, Jason, with people I work with. If in the process, if they're not able to answer that and say, I don't know, I'd love to explore that. If they can't get to that point to at least question it, probably not the right time to do any coaching or for me to work with them, because I can't get them to say, that's interesting. I'd like to consider that. I can't make them, I can force them to try to say it, but if they don't say it, if they don't really go, I want to explore that. If they don't do that, I can't, we're dead in the water. And that's okay too. I'm like, that's okay. But if you ever change, if you ever desire and you think I want to try something different, but you're struggling how to do it, it's all I need. Just give me that little space and let's go figure it out.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Talking about sports and guys that overcome, and it's like, I'm from Boston. I'm big Patriots fans. Oh. Tom Brady is like my idol. I know. If you're not from there, then he's not. But I mean,
I know.
People.
No, I love great athletes and people who. I mean, I love Tom Brady. That guy.
He just. Man. I mean, the funny thing is, like, he was the 199th pick in the draft, right? Nobody thought that the 199th pick in the draft would be the greatest of all time. They always love to put up the picture of him on draft day. You couldn't think of like a less athletic looking guy. Like you'd be like, that guy's never going to amount to anything. And 20 plus years and 7 Super Bowls later, like he's unquestionably the greatest quarterback, maybe football player of all time. And it's just because of what he did with his mind. I mean, I fully believe it's because of what he did with his mind.
So true. And we underestimate the power of that. We understand it intellectually, but we never engage it enough to really experience it. We think it's for them. They're a super athlete. They're wired that way. They have this. I'm thinking, there are people who have inclinations towards things and they think about things differently. But I think all of us, so the book is called Born Limitless, right? And it's this idea that in our createdness, in our being born, we have a limitless possibilities. We have the ability to have an infinite mindset and opportunity in front of us from our conception and birth. The problem is life happens. Circumstances, environments, traumas, accidents, all this stuff, life just starts hitting us like mine did. And we begin to shape our belief about ourselves that puts a ceiling on our lives, and we start settling for less than we were ever intended to. And all I'm saying is what if we could break through that a little bit, get back to that idea that in your createdness, in your birth, in your identity of who you are as a human has this potential. I'm not talking about stuff and money and cars, but I'm talking about an impact of your life has the potential for that. And we can clear that up, and let's take another journey and understand that everything that you've been through has shaped you, but it doesn't define you. You're allowing it to define you. So now you've said, this is it, and you settle. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. My kids have reset that for me. When you see the that sort of limitless belief that children are born with, and it's like, well, why can't we think that way? Like, why can't I go back to think like that? And it's just, certainly I'm not gonna take it away from them. I'm gonna let them have that as long as possible. Like, that's one of my biggest fears is life sort of beating that out of them over time. But I'm like, no, this is like, let me learn as much from them as I teach them, and a lot of that's about just sort of like resetting the possibilities.
That's so good, Jason. I appreciate that. You talked about that, and that's something I was listening to about the priority of what you guys do and why you do what you do, and it's time with family, right? I read stuff and heard you say things in the podcast I've listened to that say at the core of everything in you is this priority of family and your kids and what you've learned from them, and why you've done some of the things that you've done, right, is to build a future and a legacy and give opportunity for their dreams and their possibilities, right? And I think we underestimate that. And the reality is we're missing that a lot in our world today for whatever reasons, no judgment, but we are dream stealers, right? You can never. That's not for you. That's for them. But you're right. The innocence of children that says, why not? And that's what they'll believe until someone tells them, an authority in their lives, someone in life says, because it's not for us.
Yep.
It's for those people or whatever. Right. And man, we don't understand the power of our words that we speak over ourselves and we speak over the people around us, not necessarily intentionally. We mean it out of love, like protection. I want to keep you from the pain of failure. So let me tell you that this is probably not a thing you want to do, because the Torrisons, we've never been very good at math. We're just not really good numbers people. So I just want to keep you from going down that road because you'll just experience heartache and failure. So I'm trying to do you a service.
Right.
I thought, I don't know, is there a gene that says I'm good with math or not good? I mean, there's genes about analytical how we think.
Right.
But I'm like, who says that I can't do that? But I'm going to believe you because you're an authority in my life. So now I've believed it, and now I'm going to act in such a way that verifies it.
Yeah, 100%. I think this.
I love your intentionality with your kids and just what I've heard you speak about your family. I think a son. Do you have a son? Is that right?
I have a son and a daughter. My son's 5. My daughter's 2.5. So they're still in that very very open thinking on everything, and I love it. I don't it's like, obviously as a parent you have to balance that protection from a don't run out in the street, that's sort of the physical things, but I try to let them believe what is possible, that virtually anything is possible, and so they don't limit
and even
themselves.
If it's not, what's the lesson we can teach them in failing? That's why they're in our home. We're not going to let them get hit by a car or stick their fingers in a socket or touch a hot stove. We're going to do things that protect them physically, emotionally, mentally from harmful things. But the reality is, fail. I want you to go through life and take a risk and a challenge. And I want to be there right with you when you fall and you stumble and it's hard and it doesn't work out. So I want to tell you that's okay. It's part of the process. Right. It isn't that you fell. Let's get up and figure this next thing out. That gift, And our kids, I'll tell you this so I do a lot of work with families and young kids, and I tell them from birth to about between 7 and 9, but 7 years old are the most important years of a child's life because that's when they're being imprinted. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're going to come back to as they get older of what did they learn, see, and experience? What was taught to them? Because they're not making decisions for themselves necessarily at that point. They are sponges observing and then responding. So that's 0 to about 7 to 9 years old are the most important times for a family and parents because what we sow in there, what we put in there, what we speak in there is what they're going to seek to grab a hold of when they're not listening to us anymore down the road. And when they go into that Rolodex to dig back, and so should I take this from this person or go this with this person or tell this person that lie? They're going to go back and go, should I do that? And they're going to look in their Rolodex. And they're going to go, what have I learned that might speak to that situation? And if they don't have anything, they're going to go with the emotion, the feeling, the pressure, whatever it says in the moment, that's what they're going to do. But if they can go, I remember when. Now, they still may make a wrong decision. That's okay. But they're going to have something to go, I remember when. And my dad used to tell me this. I'm not going to do this. I don't need to do this because I have a context of a foundation that gives me an option to say, that's probably not okay. Yeah. Does that make sense? I mean, it's so powerful. And I missed it. I didn't do that well at that. I didn't have this revelation 30 years ago when my kids were young. And as I grew up and learned this, that's part of what I do. I was like, oh, wow. There's so much to that we just underestimate. So the TV and phones and iPads raise our children. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not saying those things are bad and I keep my kids from. I'm just saying we don't understand the power of dad and son and mom and daughter, caretaker, because we just don't always have the mom and dad there. But that life person in that young person's life that speaks life. Mm-hmm. I don't care what their biological role is, but that speaks life.
Yeah. I think it's
powerful.
It's so powerful, and I honestly, like, I just think in both directions. Like I hope that I hope that I teach them as much as they teach me. I really do. Like they just have and I think it's funny. You say you didn't have these revelations. I had my kids. I'm 49. Like I had my kids later in life. If I had them when I was 25, I would not have been the same person. I would not have been. I don't know that I'm not sure anyone would call me patient, but I am far more patient with them than I would have been able to be at that point in my life. So I think it's just, in a way, like sometimes I don't love the fact that I had my kids, kind of later than is, again, I guess go back to that normal thing. Yeah. But in a lot of ways, I think it actually makes me a better dad. So
I would not disagree. The harder part is they get older and we're older, but the reality of the maturity and the wisdom that you've walked in that can know if we use it right. Again, it's a choice. You have to choose what to do with your life's experiences and how you want to engage your kids. Everyone has those experiences, right? But what do we do with it? Yeah. How do you choose to use that as a filter and a lens by which you want to raise your team, your business, your profession, your family, your marriage, your kids? Yeah. We have to choose to be intentional. And if we don't know who we are, haven't dealt with some of these issues and these challenges, then it's hard to be intentional in a healthy manner. Yeah. It's just difficult because we do what we know and understand and what we're comfortable with.
It, quite frankly, makes me want to live longer. I want to see what they do. I just want to be there. Like I want, it's like, it's just kind of that, now I got like milestones of theirs to look forward to that I'm excited about. Yeah. So
so what do you start doing? But this is the whole thing. So now longevity of life. I need to look at myself and go, I need to think of myself differently. I need to think of my health differently. Yep. I need to make better choices. I need to start, if I really want that vision, because this is all about the framework. If I really want this destination, what am I going to do now to make sure I have every opportunity to have that destination? Yeah.
That 100% has changed.
That's where power and transformation happens.
Yeah. Like the way the things that, like even just from an exercise standpoint, it's like, a lot of times people go to the gym because they want to lift the heaviest weight they possibly can. And like, I've had same trainer for a long time, and it's fun to lift heavier weights, but he knows that my my goal is that I can play with my kids. Like I can get on the floor, play with them, wrestle with them.
So good.
Do all of like, that's what, so like strength is great, but I need some level of ability to maintain joints and things like that too. So it's just a different focus, I guess, that it gives me in terms of
that's a profound statement that I hope all the listeners that follow you heard you say, because it's motivation and vision that's driving why you do what you do. I could go and try to lift all these weights, but my coach, my trainer, this person in my life knows what my destination, desire, goal is. So therefore my actions and behaviors are fitting for me to reach that goal, not this other thing or other expectation or some vain thing or anything else. That's to me, I mean, that's the power that we have to unlock in ourselves. And what is your motivation? What's your desire? What are you after? And how is your life then reflecting and serving that vision? And if it's not, are you willing to do something different? Is that vision strong enough, that motivation, that passion strong enough to actually change something that isn't serving you any longer? And typically the reason we don't change it is because we've got a belief about it that we haven't broken through.
Yeah. No, it's...
So anyways, I feel like a lot of preaching in this podcast for me, or a lot of pontificating, I guess, or whatever. And you know, I hope there's value that in all these words that your team and your people can catch from this. And
I can't imagine I can't imagine like people aren't going to love this, but regardless, I've gotten a lot of value from this conversation. So we're from a selfish standpoint, this one's been fantastic.
It's been great. I've enjoyed it as well.
Rick, let me just switch gears and ask you the questions I ask every guest, so I don't keep you all day.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
Love this conversation. The first one, and you've kind of talked about the concept of why, and that it's, you know, being in reverse. Mm-hmm. And so the name of the show is Know Your Why, and I look at it as what you said made total sense to me, but I look at why as a sort of forward-looking thing. But I think I also have looked back and said, you know, probably it was some of the past things that happened to me that were my why before I had kids, and now my why has, you know, I think the why evolves. But so, long story short, the question is, what is your why? What's kind of motivating you at this point?
Yeah. So I guess if I simplify, so part of my coaching is I help people create a purpose or vision statement, a why statement for their lives. Not what they want to do, but the influence and impact they want their life to have. And then we build core values that drive to that vision in our lives. And then our definition of leadership. So in my journey, if I was going to summarize it, kind of big picture of how I state it, the why of my life, the purpose of my life, the why I believe I exist, the influence and impact I desire to have, is that I would glorify, for me, I'm a faith person, so I would glorify God in all that I do. And I know what that means. When I say that, there is a lifestyle I see of how I want to show up in the world that would lead me to do that. There's values that drive me. So two things: to glorify God in all that I do, and to empower growth in others. Not growth with God, growth, that they would become better because they've known me, because they've spent time with me, that they would feel more confident, more energized, more possibilities because the life that they've encountered with me. So my why is all about those things. Everything I do from that point on, the micro to the macro, has to align with those two purposes or those two whys. Right? And that's what drives me in how I make decisions. My values then align with that. How I make decisions for businesses or writing the book or relationships, marriage, doesn't matter. Yeah. Was that kind of what you're asking? Is that?
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great.
I know there's no wrong answer, but I want to make sure that was what you were asking.
No wrong answers, but no, that's fantastic.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, Rick. That's not your why.
That is not your why. I'm going to need you to try again. I've got it right here. I'll let you know when you get it right. No,
this is not what you wrote down.
Yeah, it's sorry you failed this test.
That's funny.
Yeah. Rick,
that's
I'm actually not going to ask you all 4 questions because I think some of them are like real estate relevant.
I'll shorten them.
No. It's not a length issue. It's more just I think some of them are more relevant to real estate. But I do want to ask you, one, when people hear this and they want to reach you, what's the best way to reach out? They're, maybe excited about the chance to work together. What would you tell them?
Yeah. So absolutely. So I have been refocusing and purposing my life. Like I said, I'm about to be 60 and I want the last 15, 20 years of active life to really count and matter with everything I've done. And so I've been focusing that. And so what I would say to people is I've got a book coming out. It's launching on, is it okay if I share with your group? It's launching March 7th or May 7th is when it goes public. Like it launches and it's everywhere. Its pre-sales start the first week, I think like March 10th. And so right now, everything, and it's called Born Limitless. It's about crushing limiting beliefs, cultivating an infinite mindset, and unleashing your true potential. It's a lot of what we talked about here, the framework, the coaching. I do one-to-one coaching, group coaching, and then I speak around this to help call people's greatness out of them. So to answer your question, what I'm asking now is, one, help me get the word out. Help me get this book out. Purchase the book. You can buy it at bornlimitlessbook.com. So that's where you can go and it'll take you in the process. It's a typical funnel, right? Go buy a book. Hey, buy 10 books, right? It's just part of the process I'm in. But if you want to buy more books, great. But help me by going there and buying the book. And if you think it's good and it's valuable and it's worthy, then share it. The other thing is I'd love for you to just jump into my community and learn more about what I'm doing and maybe about you, and that would be through Instagram, which is at Rick Torrison. If you could put those in the show notes at some point, that would be great. Because in there, I have a private Facebook community and other things, but right there would be, you could learn about me. And if you'll DM me, if you go into my Instagram at Rick Torrison and DM me a limiting belief that you've wrestled with, I'll send you a simple one-page kind of, hey, here's a framework of how I work with limiting beliefs. And I'll just give that to you. Just DM me, I'll send that to you and as a value just for you. And then that's how you can find out what's happening, what I'm doing. I'm speaking and doing different things, but really, I want to journey with people who are wanting to grow and just explore what is possible in their lives. And I want to unlock those limiting beliefs for them or help them unlock them for themselves so that they can see what might be possible in their lives. And so bornlimitlessbook.com or at Rick Torrison on Instagram and message me there and let's get connected and see what happens from there. So that's really what I'm about and what I'm after.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll definitely put all that in the show notes so people will be able to,
I appreciate it.
To find it and reach out and get right to your book. Well, listen, thanks. This has been awesome. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I think there's a ton of stuff in there that, for people to listen to and, of course, get to the book. But I do think, I'm very thankful that for as much as you shared here, actionable advice, ways to kind of look at how we think of things and get around those limiting beliefs. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jason. You came highly recommended, and thank you for allowing me the honor to be on your podcast. And I love the title, Know Your Why. Yeah. It's so important because that drives everything we do. And so I just pray the richest blessings for you, your family, and just what you're doing, and look forward to connecting in the future. But thanks for the opportunity to share with your community.
Yeah. Thank you. And folks listening, I know you're going to love this one. Please like, rate, and review the show. Go get Rick's book. And thank you all for listening. Appreciate it very much.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?